Hey, vinyl community, it's John again, with a video that I have tried to record like 3 times, and I'm finally going about it a different way, so I'm going to get it done, I think. It might be in multiple sessions, but eventually I will get this thing done. A while back, our friend the Vinyl Douche was sharing some of his latest record buys, and he shared this album right here, the latest by Deerhunter. And I commented in the video below, I was like, oh man, like, I was going to do this series on Deerhunter in kind of like honor of their new release. And he said, nobody's stopping you. John, go ahead and do it. There are no rules here. This is YouTube. The wild frontier. You know, go ahead, do your Deerhunter video. I look forward to seeing your Deerhunter video. And so I've been making him wait for it for about 20 years, and finally, it's gonna go on. It's gonna be posted. This is the one. So anyway, Deerhunter. Quickly, they're a band from Atlanta, Georgia. They got together around 2003-ish, I think. So they've been around a while. And again, listen, if I'm not trying to pretend like I'm the only person in the world, or that me and the Vinyl Douche are the only people in the world that know who Deerhunter is. So please, don't be offended or blow me up in the comments, you know, like, oh, you don't think we know who Deerhunter, like, this is strictly for people who might not know who they are. And this is kind of a me going through their discography, hopefully quickly, and this is me making a recommendation to people out there. So anyway, again, Deerhunter from Atlanta. The front man is named Bradford Cox. In my opinion, he is a genius, and probably one of the best creative forces out there in modern music and contemporary music. It's important to know a couple of things about Bradford. One, he has Marfan syndrome, which is a genetic disorder. It's a connective tissue disorder, and so he looks a little odd because of this. A lot of people with Marfan syndrome are tall and lanky, and they have elongated limbs and digits, toes and fingers. He is by his appearance, you would think that he was either 1, starving, literally starving, or 2, like a serious, like, heroin or meth addict or something like that, and he's neither one. But because of this Marfan syndrome, that leads to a lot of the lyrics being kind of dark, and I think that it definitely informs this person, who he is, for sure. I don't know if it does the band's music overall, but the tone of a lot of it tends to be darker, and because he's lived kind of a life of isolation. What other kind of background info? Well, why Deerhunter, John? Why are you bringing Deerhunter to the VC? Well, because there are a lot of you out there who are very into psych, and I see a lot of people talking about, you know, King Gizzard and their 800 albums, and I see a lot of people out in the vinyl community, the Instagram community, that aren't really on the YouTube community, talking about the OCs or Ty Segall or whatever, and Deerhunter is a band that is very influenced by psych music, and that's kind of one reason. And then the other reason is, look, they just make really incredible, really intelligent experimental rock, and if you're into anything that remotely resembles that, this is a band that you should be into if you aren't already. Then that's just my opinion, and so that's why I'm kind of doing a little bit of a video on them, an artist spotlight on them. Now let's just go straight into their first album, because I don't have it. It's called Turn It Up Faggot. It's also referred to as Deerhunter because some people are offended by the title, but it's not meant to be offensive. If anything, it's kind of self-deprecating. They named the band that, they named the first album that, because that was a chant, a heckled chant that they would hear a lot at their first gigs. At least that's what Bradford says. So yeah. So the album Turn It Up Faggot came out in 2005. It is very experimental. They came right out of the gates, not trying to pull anything on anybody. It is still to this day their most experimental album. I would call it more noise rock than anything. There is still some psych influence, but mostly in all of the songs contain vocals that are layered, and I use layered intentionally in that it's not like recorded like harmony vocals or anything. I mean, it's like the exact same vocal track repeated on top of itself. There's also kind of like some dance punk rhythms, which were still pretty in vogue at the time. But it's an avant-garde rock album for sure, and you know, I don't consider it required listening for the band. I have heard it though, and you can't stream it. It's not on any of the streaming services, but it is on YouTube. Everything's on YouTube, so you can find it on YouTube if you would like to check it out. But yeah, that was their first album in 2005. And I'm gonna have samples for all the other albums that I talk about, but that one, I'm not going to, because like I said, you can look it up on YouTube. The next album came out in 2007. Hey, psych folks, come on. A modern, very clean, modern design interpretation of a psych cover, but nonetheless. This is an album called Cryptograms. Came out in 2007. It was, the first recording sessions were scrapped. And the band almost broke up. Bradford Cox, again the front man, was going through a rough time. His mental state was not good, and that resulted from a lot of his physical state. So they hit some hard times there. They So they scrapped those sessions, but then were later encouraged by another band in the indie scene, a band called Liars, to continue on, and so they went back into the studio and they recorded the album in 2 days. 2 one-day sessions that happened months apart. Half the album is very instrumental and highly experimental, and a lot of it's very ambient. And then the other half is closer to more pop structured songs. There are a lot of effects on this album. I would say not only do you get a lot of psych influence and just experimental rock influence, there's a very shoegaze element to this album. Even though I don't think that they like to be called a shoegaze band. This particular copy it's one of the original presses from 2007. It's a 2 LP. The Cryptograms is on 3 sides. It's on black vinyl. And the 4th side is the EP Fluorescent Gray. And the cover for that is featured on the back here. Fluorescent Gray is a lot more accessible and a hint towards where the band was moving forward. Bradford Cox said that he felt that all 4 tracks on Fluorescent Gray could have been singles. Cryptograms is a somewhat challenging album, and but yet the more I've listened to it, the more time I've given it, it's really grown on me, and there's a lot of depth to it. Anyway, Cryptograms, that's the 2nd album by Deerhunter. Really good album. I think the sample I was gonna play was Spring Halt Convert. Yeah, so let's listen to that.
So I woke up in a radio freeze, occupied by a couple of girls I knew from way back.
So, that was Spring Halt Convert off of Deerhunter's Cryptograms. The next album, well, two albums that I'm going to talk about, came out simultaneously. In 2008, I really only sampled one of them because I listened to it online first before I got a physical copy. But those two albums were called Microcastle and Weird Era Continued. This is a 2009 press. The original press was 1 LP, and then Microcastle was the intended album, and then Weird Era Continued was a companion piece. So that was the original press in 2008. This is a 2009 where both albums were pressed to LP. It's on black vinyl. Anyway, Microcastle is my favorite album by Deerhunter. It's to me it's the sound of a band starting to kind of find its identity. I think it already had an identity. Deerhunter already had an identity, but this being their second album with Lockett Punt, who joined the band right before Cryptograms, I think his influence on the band was starting to be felt more, and there was a little bit more of a partnership starting to form between him and Bradford on the material. Microcastle is, in my opinion, a gorgeous album. And some people might hear it after me saying it's gorgeous and be like, what? And I'm not saying it's pristine in its sound. Not like say like an In Rainbows by Radiohead or something like that. But there's like just a haunting beauty that runs through it to me, and I love Microcastle. There's definitely more homage to older sounds on that album, not only just 60s psych but 60s garage, even 60s kind of pop even. A couple of the songs even have kind of these longer stretched out jams at the end that kind of make you think of krautrock. I mean, they're just such a smart band in how they take all of these influences and make them something new. You know, there's a lot of bands out there today that are very influenced by the past, and that's been going on for a while. But especially today, it's hard for anybody to really create anything new. And so really what you're doing is you're just trying to forge a sound that's yours. And Deerhunter is so good at doing that. And you know, it's why they're loved by critics, because they push all the right buttons, you know. And but anyway, I think Microcastle was recorded in about a week. They intentionally laid off of the effects, even though I still hear a lot in there. So I think there's more. Maybe there were more keyboards utilized for the album. More not synth necessarily, but definitely keys were kind of utilized more. But definitely they did lay off the effect pedals a little bit more on this album, and but it still has like just an epic feel, and yeah, it's really good. Now, Weird Era Continued is, is different. It's not as cohesive because all of the songs were contributed by individual members of the band. It was kind of the only time that they've ever done this. And the reason why is Microcastle was leaked before its release date. And in order to kind of make up for that, they rushed into the studio and recorded Weird Era Continued as kind of like a surprise album that they were going to put out with Microcastle. And then it leaked too. The shoegazy sound kind of like returns on some of those songs. But yeah, Weird Era Continued is it's still a really good album, but it takes a while. It takes a while for it to hit. Microcastle to me is just a no-brainer, just all the way through. But anyway, so I'm gonna hit you with two samples here back to back. The first one, I think I chose Nothing Ever Happened off of Microcastle, and then Operation, I think was the one, yeah, Operation off of Weird Era Continued. So let's check those out.
Nothing ever happened to me. Nothing ever feel what you